Okay, then should I start?
Yes, Bante, yes, please. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Department of Pali, University of Mumbai, for inviting all the way from Thailand to to give this Dhammmasavana. And as I understood, the topic is about um, role of Buddhist education and its application and its applicability, relevance in the 21st century, which is quite a big topic. So it means that within 1 hour, how I'm going to finish this is a big challenge for me. Well, when we talk about the education, I guess one of the whole idea in Buddhism is what is Buddhism at all? I think that is one of the great um, issue we have to think, because when we talk about religion, as Buddhism as a religion, there is a big problem within the definition of Buddhism and then how we relate itself to the education. Um, Education is basically, I guess, it is about something about when we talk about studying in many problem, in many problem, there is a what we call the general understanding of our education is that to get a piece of paper, isn't it? We always go through the whole life in our education, and then finally what we get is a piece of paper. And generally with the piece of paper, we thought that we are educated. And uh, in the whole case, we get a PhD, we get a master degree, and so on. And we find that we are ready to run our life. So the whole idea of a modern education, I guess that the problem here is we educate people to prepare for their job hunting, to prepare for their employment. And so the whole idea of education, I guess that it is distorted in that sense, in the modern sense. But when we look at the whole idea of Buddhism, education is not the way we understand as it is a key to find a job or job application. But overall, it is something that we have to develop within in our life to become a better human being. So the whole idea of a Buddhist education is totally different from modern education. That is what my observation is. That is what I observe these days. Especially I myself involved in the education, in the field of education, as a administrator, as a deputy director of the Mahamogir Buddhist University, and also running another, what you call this World Buddhist University, which is more or less a think tank. But I find that when I talk about education, people always tell me about what is your degree or what degree you offer. So, PhD, bachelor, what subject, and so and so. So what happened is that even the whole idea of Buddhism suddenly becomes just a part of a secularized education. So that really minimized the whole idea of what we call is what you understand as a Buddhist education, I would say that. Because if we talk about Buddhist education, in fact, what is the essence of Buddhism itself? We know that Buddha taught about the many things, but the heart of Buddhism itself is actually is education, isn't it? Because when we say that the Eightfold Noble Path or the Four Noble Truths, all this big Buddhist philosophy, for example, when we talk about the Eightfold Noble Path, what does it really mean? Eightfold Noble Path, it is put in our ancestor has sort of reorganized and presented to us as what he call is Tiksikha, or the three education. So basically, the whole way to go to Buddhism is actually through educations. And the very different identity or very different sort of difference we can see from the modern education, secularized education, and Buddhist education is that in a modern education is that we take education as a means to find the ends. The ends is always secular. Whereas Buddhist education is a means and ends. It have to be the same way. It has to be the same Buddhist education. And it means that we have to study the three things, or the three sort of a field in our life. Tisika, that is a sila, that is a samadhi, and that is a panya. Basically, sila, samadhi, panya is that what? The sila basically means society. And samadhi means that it's spirituality. And whereas the panya means that it is intellectuality. It is kind of, we look at our own knowledge, the spirit. So therefore, when we talk about Buddhist educations, we are talking about whole life. In other words, in a modern word, we will say that we are talking about the holistic education. It is not something secular education as we always think. The education as we think, generally, I guess it is not complete, because the way we think about education is that, for example, in our life, from our childhood, when we finish our education as a PhD, we are done. And we go and hunt for our job. And then, I don't know, then what else? Then everybody says that, I'm educated, I have this degree and that degree. At most, you can go to the, what you call is, or post PhD and so and so. But again, then you started to establish yourself as a professor, and you are going and using that knowledge, I don't know in what ways. But in Buddhism, I guess that education is whole life. We have to educate ourselves until the last breath. We say ase kapugala, actually. When we say ase kapugala, means that someone who doesn't need to study anymore, who doesn't need to educate anymore, that is the one who already achieved nirvana or the arahata. But as all of us, we are regarded as a sekapugala. Sekapugala means that we have to educate, we have to learn, we have to study throughout all our life. So therefore, there's a drastic differences between the secular education as we used to teach in what we call is in modern universities, as in the Mumbai universities, for example, and the whole idea of how we are going to use what we call is Buddhist education as a part of who we are, as a part of a kind of a way we try to learn our life through. So therefore, when we talk about the whole idea of educations, I guess first we have to think of the word itself as what we call manusya itself. Look at the word manusya. I guess that everyone knows what does manusya means. And in the term word manusya, it already shows that who we are and how important educations there is for us. Because mana ushaya, that is a word, I guess, for the Pali scholars. Everyone knows that mana, in Sanskrit is a mana ushaya, or the mana ujja. Basically means that the man who has a higher power of thinking. And when we say the higher power of thinking, and that is basically higher power of educations, higher power of learning, higher power of studying, which is totally different, or the comparatively totally different from all other the creatures, all other animals, all other tirachanas, because they are, one way or another, they can be trained, I guess. Of course, we can train our dog, we can train our horses, we can train and all different kind of animals. But in what length? We can train those animals in a very certain limitations. But as a human being, we call Purisa Dhammasarati in the Itipiso verses, and basically means that we are, as a Purisa, as a human beings, we are trainable. Every one of us are trainable, and that trainable is in the two sense. One is that you can train by others, just like any other animals. We can see that all the creatures have to be trained by others. And so as we have to be trained by others in our society, our parents, our colleges, our schools, our society train us to be who we are. But one of the specialty of human being as the one who have a higher power of thought is that we can train ourselves. And that is more important than trained by others. So the whole life in Buddhism, we are talking about how do we train ourselves? How do we educate ourselves? So therefore, I guess we have to make a very dichotomy differences between the secular education, what we are very familiar with, and what we call is Buddhist education. When we talk about Buddhism, I have a big problem, because when most of the scholars these days even take Buddhism as a religion. And when we talk about the Western approach, even worse, they take it as a philosophy again. And a philosophy is actually, from the Buddhist point of view, Buddha clearly says that Buddhism is not a darshan. Buddhism is another philosophy. Darshan is a view of a certain people, certain thing. You can go on and on. That is what we call the darshan or the philosophy. But if we talk about the whole idea of a religion in Buddhism, I think it is very important to realize that the English word of religion and Buddhist word of sasana is totally different. When we talk about religion in English, we knew that it is about binding peoples. It is about relationship we created with someone else, and relationship, relative, and so on. So immediately the religions become a kind of a binding we created with the, what you call is superhuman, the God, as a master and a human being as a slave. So therefore, in Western approach of religion is the faith is very, very important. Believing is very, very important. Whereas in Buddhism, we say that in order to be a Buddha, you have to destroy the faith. You have to destroy believing. Because as long as we stuck into believing, it means that we are the stupid one. We are actually, the word believing is that something you don't know. The believing is that you don't know. So you don't know, that's why you believe. Believe on somebody, believe on something. You have to have some base to believe because you don't know reality. So if I show my glass, my spectacle, and then do I have to say that I believe this is my glass? Everyone know for sure that this is my glass. I don't have to say that I believe this is my glass, because it is with me and then it stood with my eyes, and that's why this is my glass. So I don't have to say that I believe this is my glass, or I believe this is a glass. No. So when we say I believe, it means that you don't know. When you don't know, then you go on with all this stupidity, all this ignorance, all this avidya. And that is what Buddha is attacking. The whole idea of Buddhism is that we have to destroy that avidya. We have to destroy that ignorance and to become a Buddha. To become a Buddha is that to know yourself. And basically based on that, Buddha Sasana means that a Sasana as Sasanang Kileseti Sasana, which means that any instruction, any advice and education which eliminate your mental defilement, which eliminate your kilesa, the greed, the hatred, the the ignorance. So once you eradicate all those things, the other teachings which can eradicate all those things, then you become a Buddha, the knowing, you know, because there is nothing that which can stop, which can blindfold you, which can really obstruct your view. So you are able to see things as they really are. So therefore, you can see that the whole idea of Buddhism is nothing that we have to believe in. The whole idea of Buddhism is that through the knowledge, we destroy that belief system. Through our education, we destroy all belief system. So therefore, in that terms, in that idea of Buddhism as instructions for which that instruction which lead to elimination of all those kilesas is the word sasana, is the word Buddhism. Therefore, it is very clear that Buddhism itself is a whole series of education system. And it is a holistic education, I would say. It is not kind of just to gain knowledge and to become a philosophical expert and then come and debate and so, in a way that you are creating more greed, you are creating more aversion, more hatred, and more ignorance with the philosophy. Therefore, the whole idea of a Buddhist education, I would say, is something we have to really come back and look at it in a very different perspective. Because education, the word sikha, doesn't really mean what we always say. Let me use my PowerPoint here. I don't know if it is workable or not, because I'm very familiar with the Zoom, but I'm not so. Okay. While the PowerPoint is still working on, I would say that, so therefore, when we look at the Buddhist educations, we have to think that the first thing is that Buddhism is education itself, because it is about how you educate yourself in a way that you can eradicate all the problems you got in your life. So education for Buddhist perspective is that how do you solve your life problem? How do you achieve from not only effectiveness, but to become a greatness? So when we talk about the greatness of humanity, and that is all about the what we call aseka in Buddhist point of view, the awakened one. Whereas on their way, then we will see that we are still the Seka Puggala. So therefore, everyone in this earth is still Seka Puggala, means that we have to learn. So that's why from Buddhist point of view, Buddhist perspective, we are all lifelong learners. So it is not just a kind of learning the idea of what we say, just a secular idea of education. When we get a piece of paper, we are done. And then through the piece of paper, we go and apply the job. But in the Buddhist point of view, no. It is about we are all lifelong learners, which is, again, to just modernize the idea, we can see that it is something that Albert Einstein states, that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, you see. This is something very similar to what Buddha said. When we talk about the whole idea of educations, generally these days when we talk about education, we are talking about the learning of the facts and the memory of the facts. Just to check with you, did you see my PowerPoint? So Albert Einstein states that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And this is what exactly Buddha has been saying 2,600 years ago. But these days, what we have reduced our education just only to the learning of the fact instead. It is not about the training of the mind to think, to minding. So this is very important in terms of Buddhist educations. So therefore, I would say that man as a manushya is a vessel of learning. Why? If we take the idea of what we call is who we are as a human being, I think this is one new way of thinking, I guess, that I'm going a little bit very philosophical ground in this sense, instead of just going to talk about what education is all about. I would say that as a human being, what makes us human being from the Buddhist point of view? For sure, as a human beings, we say that we are the skandhas, we are the aggregates. We have 5 basic tools, which we call aggregates, that enable us to grow towards ever greater maturity, to a full-fledged man. And they are the body, the emotions, our feeling, the memory, the willpower, our compounding, and the intellect. Basically, it's a rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana. So this growing process is non-stop. It keeps learning till one's last breath. This is what I call education for life. This is what I call is Buddhist education. Because we have, as a manushya, we have these 5 aggregates, and then these 5 aggregates has to always learn all the time. We have to be trained, we have to be learn new things. Otherwise, what we call human is incomplete in that sense. And this 5 aggregates actually is something that a value learning system to be a man, to be a human. So this is very different way of looking at the, I guess, as a Buddhist education through the 5 aggregates. Because generally we talk about 5 aggregates from a Buddhist philosophical point of view. But I see that if you want to really develop as who we are as a human, and then we have to realize that what makes us human, and from Buddhist point of view, what makes us human is just a panchaskandha, or the 5 aggregates. And basically 5 aggregates is actually always have to live, always have to learn new things, always have to educate it all the time, always educating. So how it works is something I have to go, I will take you to a step by step. But again, the word sikha in Buddhism is very, very important role, I guess. We are very familiar with the word sikha. We call tisika, as I just mentioned, means that the sila, samadhi, prajna. But also in another very normal way is that when we talk about the sikha, is that the sikha padang samadhiyami. So when we observe the 5 precepts, we are always using the word sikha padang samadhiyami. And there actually is a big leap on that. There's a big misunderstanding on that, actually, I would say that. Because if we say the 5 precepts in the whole idea, just means we are talking about, let's say, not to do this and that, or don't do this and that. These are not really what it means in the 5 precepts. Because the word in 5 precepts, we can't kind of go over. The very important word is sikhapadang. Because the word sikhapadang is basically, padang is a pada, or the path, or the lessons, and sikha just means that study, or the educations. So when we take the 5 precepts, for example, panatipata veramani sikhapadang samadhiyami, if we look at any translations, they translate in every book that not to kill. But if you look at it very, very sort of in a way of the Pali scholars, then you will see that there is no such thing as a don't kill. There's one shouldn't kill. It is all about education instead. You say that samadhiyami, I agree to accept, I accept. Accept what? Sikhapadang, I accept to study. I accept to learn or study. Study what? Veramani, to avoid. Avoid what? Panadipata. Pata means a severing, cutting, and pana means that the prana, the breath. So basically, we are saying that we should dedicate ourselves in learning the lessons of avoiding cutting breath or severing the breath. And this is where is where we can find there's a done kill. There's no such thing as a done kill. The killing is based on the conditions and many other factors. But we have to be cognized. Basically, sikha padang said we have to be cognized. Cognize what? It's kind of a direct and self-understanding of do and don't. Why? So in a way that if we just say that don't kill, it means that it is an order, it is a faith, it is a belief system. So you have to believe because it's a Buddha said it. But Buddha doesn't want us to believe him. He said that if we do or if we don't, we have to do based on our logic, based on our experience, based on our sort of a real life. So therefore, panadipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami basically means that if you dedicate yourself to study, to educate yourself in the pro and con of hurting others, the killing others, then you will know for yourself that whether it is good to kill or not to kill. So it is not about not killing, but it is a cognition, it is a cognitivity you have to develop within yourself through the self-experience. And then when you don't kill, it means that you have your own logic. It means that because you know that it will bring suffering to yourself, to others, and so and so. Not because of the Buddha said it, not because of you take the precept. But you don't do it because you know the result. You know the negative result from what you do it. So that's why you avoid yourself, not because of because of not of the Buddha, or not because of any teacher, any Buddhist monk. It's just like I always put a very simple example for my student is that, which is actually a little bit dirty, but let's say that if you have a dog poo, the dog poo in front of your house or in front of our classroom. So do we have to put the signboard that this is dog poo, don't come and touch it? Do we have to put that? No, because everyone knows that that is dirty, because if you go and touch it, you will get dirty. And everyone knows that when you get dirty, yourself disgust yourself, and then it's also create disgusting for other peoples. So that's why there is no need to sign, or there is no other signs to say that the dog poo is dirty. But you will know it's a cognitivity you have learned from your childhood. And then in that sense, you avoid yourself. That is a basic idea for Panchasila in that sense, you see. When you know the Panchasila, it means that you don't go to those kind of crime or those kind of the misdeed at all, because you know for yourself that you are creating yourself a bad habit of suffering as well as others. So that is education in Buddhist point of view, you see. So when you do the ritual, Buddha is talking about you have to educate yourself. You have to go and study that. And in a way that once you understand what you learn, what you study, then you will know how to behave yourself. Then you will know that how to increase your quality of your life. So you see, it's totally different from what we understand as education from secular point of view. From secular point of view, you have to get a piece of paper. Through that piece of paper and many connections, you go to apply for a job. Sometimes the piece of paper doesn't work. You need a networking. You need a connections. Only you will be accepted for the job. And then you have to work hard, and then you will get a salary, and then out of that, I don't know, then you will try to find the happiness, that's why in English I always say that the pursuit for happiness. And that's why I always say to the Westerners that you will never experience happiness in your life. That is a Western idea. So I was invited in the United Nations I think it was in the 2012 for the Happiness Summit, and I was a panelist. And then I challenge all those Westerners in the United Nations that, sorry to say that we are talking here about the happiness summit. We are talking about the happiness, but I guarantee, I challenge all of you that you will never experience happiness in your life. Everyone just scream, what? Because in English, they always have to pursue for happiness. Once you get that, you have to pursue for more. You have to get that because their happiness is always out there. But whereas Buddhist happiness is totally different. When you talk about happiness from Buddhist point of view, especially Pali scholars immediately know that dukkha and sukha is the same word. It's the same etymology. Du is a prefix, su is a prefix, and kha is the root verb of that, root of that word. And kha is what? Tolerate, kama. Kama dhatu means that to tolerate. And dukkha means that is intolerable. Sukha means that you can stand it, you can tolerate it. So in a way that it is to be a happy or to be a suffering is all about skill you have to develop in your life. So if you find something which is unpleasurable to you, so you need to have that skill to change that unpleasurable to the pleasurable. Then you become you can tolerate that, you become happy. For example, these lectures with this problem with this technology and so, if you can't stand this, then you say that, so in order to attend these lectures, I'm suffering the dukkha and experiencing dukkha. But if you are enjoying the Dhammadesana, you say that, regardless of all this technical problem and so, you still can hear my voice and another PowerPoint and so, but you still say that, because you can tolerable, you can accept that. That's one you will see that, I want more. That is a sukha basically. So the whole idea of a sukha dukkha is a skill which we gain through our education again. And that is a very Buddhist education, not to get a piece of paper and then to find a job. But our Buddhist education is totally, you have to learn. And once you learn, you become awakened, you can experience that. Once you learn that, you will know for yourself what you are talking about. So in a way that the 5 precepts, for example, is about the educations. Sikkhapadang is all the 5 lessons. The one is that not to kill, what we generally say, but actually it means that you have to know pro and con of killing. And then if you want to kill, that is your decision. You have to be accountable for your action. That's all. It doesn't mean that not to kill. For example, as a Buddhist monk, we have to keep that precept very pure. So we don't kill. But if in my room I have a lot of mosquito, what can I do? I say that I just pray the Karaniya Metta Sutta and then stay with the mosquito. Or I should go to my assistant, say that please consider, I got a lot of mosquito in my room. Please help me out. So generally that is called a kapiya vahara. Instead of I ask them to kill the mosquito to use the spray, but I say that please consider, please help me out. And as a lay, you are allowed to do that. Although you are breaking the precept, but that is a necessity in order to survive. And that is a Panchasila. But once you know that, you have to be accountable and then resume your precept again after you have done your job. But otherwise, how are we going to live in this, survive in our world? There will be all these creatures, all these animals, and they will be overruled our world, and then where are we going to stay? So this is, something that we have to understand. Doesn't mean that don't kill. Another example is a good example is that if our Buddhists, do we have a military? Of course we do have a military. And if we have a Buddhist military, guarding the country, and the neighboring enemy want to invade us, then what do? Oh, I have just received the precept from the venerable monk, so I shouldn't kill. Although you have the gun in your hand and you have to protect your country for the rest of the people who is living behind. So you just say that, oh, I'm a Buddhist, so I shouldn't kill. No, that is a different field. That you are the military, your duty is to protect your country for the sake of the safety of the other people who is living behind. So, panatipada there, maybe it doesn't work. But once you kill or once you have done your duty, you have to resume, you have to come back and then say that, take accountability of what you have done. Yes, I have break my precept, and then come back and resume it. So that is basically education, you see. The second one is, again, the second precept is the panatipata. The second one is adinadana, sorry. So adinadana also take something the people they didn't give to you, which is another way of saying that is stealing. So that, again, it is not a stealing as exactly what we understand, but it is, again, we are talking about something which is the understandable. So in your house, sometimes you have to take for granted. It is not stealing. You just allowed to take it among your friends, and so and so. So therefore, it is more kind of understanding than kind of not to steal or not to. It just, you don't take something that not given to you, and that is also not to done, but isn't that you have to know the result, the effect of that. You have to educate yourself that why you are not taking that, and if you take that, what happened. So because of that reality, you avoid that, not because of the Buddhist precept. The third, again, I always have a big problem with the third precepts, because third precept is that we are saying that sexual misconduct. But I guess that among the Pali scholars, that is a very debatable word, because when we talk about the sexual misconduct, and then we always stick on the monogamy, but in most of our history and in our Oriental cultures, monogamy is more or less, I guess, new, because monogamy is more or less, it is about the Western approach, and it is about the cultural preferences, actually, all those sexual behavior and sexual, what you call is, cultures. But kame sumichachara, it doesn't mean sexual misconduct alone, actually. If from the Pali point of view, look at the word kame su, because kame su is here plural. So it means that it's all different kind of karma. So it is not a sexual means that if you put it sex, it just become one. So there is a su means that there's all different kind of karma. And what is that karma? Means that karma guna. That is all the five senses. So not misconduct through five senses. Basically, we are talking about the eyes, ears, whatever the misbehave we show through our senses. That is a sensual misconduct, not a sexual misconduct. And what is sensual misconduct in modern language would be what we call is human rights, you see. We forget that word. In old days, we don't have the word human rights. And that is an exact word we use in the time of the Buddha, means that kame sumichachara. That don't inflict the rights of others, which means that also include the sexual misconduct as well. But it is a more sensible than the sexual misconduct itself, is that you shouldn't harass someone through your eyes, through your word, through your all those other things. So that's, again, you do it, you keep it based on, not because of you take precept, but because you understand by yourself. So this is, you say, Sikkhapadang. So all those five precepts, I wouldn't go through all those five of them. So look at this, the word Sikkhapadang there, and you can see that it is about education. And why we are talking about education in those things, it basically means that to shape our life, to shape our daily life, not for the piece of paper, not for a piece of paper where we are educated, graduate. So therefore, when we talk about the whole idea of this education as a Sikha, then we will see that when we contemplate Buddhism in essence, we could see that whole process in Buddhism is therefore Sekha, to be an educated one. And therefore, education is most important aspect of Buddhism. Particularly, Buddhist education leads to change or transformation of a person from ordinary person, Pritthakajana or Puthujana, to a better person, Kalyana Jana, and to training person from the Sekha Puggala to the noble ones, the Arya Pugala, or the fully trained persons. Awaken is the ultimate goal of life. The person who has attained enlightenment is called a Buddha or an awakened one. As long as you haven't attained the state of awakened one, Aseka, you need to educate yourself non-stop till your last breath to become a Seka. Accordingly, Buddhism state education is a life itself. So therefore, education is not just based on what we call is university and so on, but it is about the whole life process you have to go on. So whenever you practice Buddhism, whenever you study Buddhism, it is a part of education. In many cases, sometimes I always say that these days, all this religion, all this Buddhism, we study as a part of a secular study. And then as a secular study, what we study, we take as the fact, the knowledge, and then we store in our brain. And once we store in our brain, we come and debate each other. Who is right, who is wrong, how going on. And then suddenly you spoil the whole knowledge. But as a Buddhist education, where do you store your knowledge? Buddha says that not in your brain. If you store in your brain, like all our university student, then we end up in debating as a part of it, just to make it a philosophy, Buddhist philosophy. But if you know where to store, Buddha says that we have to store the idea of a Buddhism. Once we educate, we have to store at our actions. We have to store at our speech, and we have to store in our thought. So once we know the proper storage of those, that is the Buddhist education, you see. Then we suddenly we are able to change the education and transform others, transform men from ordinary person to better persons, from training persons to the fully trained person as Arahata. So that's why only through this, we say that we are what we call is Buddhism. That's why we call Buddhism is a way of, educating peoples. And that's why I said earlier, Buddha Sasana means that awakening. Awakening of what? Awakening of education. Buddhism is education for awakening or knowing. Know what? I would say that I know 3 S. The 1 S is society, that is a sila. The second one is a self, that is a samadhi. And the third one is spirituality, that is panya, you see. And that is all is called tisika, is a whole idea of education. Society, what is society? Again, in other way, I would put a different way for this. Generally, we all know that a sila samadhi pragya. But if you are well educated in the Pali, as this is a part of a department of Pali, I would say that, have you ever noticed what does really means by the very popular phrase we always chant, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa? Do we ever realize, or do we never think, what does it really mean? We always give a pranam and then we chant that once, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. We put that form in a more faith-based form. We put that form in a more kind of religious form. We say that I venerate to the Buddha, who is a compassionate one. I venerate to the Buddha, who is no kilesa, arahata one, and self-enlightened one. And in reality, what does it really mean in our life? But from Buddhism, we all know that Buddha doesn't like us to worship him. He's another God, and he has already attained the nirvana, and we don't know where he is. There is no existence of him in kind of a physical form. What we have is all this statue, which is we made it up. But when we worship or when we venerate to the Buddha statue, basically means that we are forming a very different world. although the word itself has a very different meaning if you educate, if you think twice and then think that what Buddha really said. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namaha, from the Pali word, we know that it is the same root as a mana. Nama and mana is the same word. To minding, to think. That is a word when instead of venerate actually. The venerate doesn't mean that you so physically go down and bow down. Basically means that you have to bring those knowledge and into practice. And how you think, Bhagavato, the compassionate one. But look at the Pali, creation of the word Bhagavato, or from the the Bhaga, or sometimes it's even called Bhaga. Basic means a compassion. What is compassion means? Every single being, in order to achieve something, you need to have a passion. That is a secular way of thinking. That is a general way of people. But Buddha says that, of course, you need to have a passions, but you are not living alone in this world. You are living with others. So that's why whatever the passion you got it, you have to make it common passion, you see. So that is the word compassion all about. Common passion. So because you are the part of the society, you are another owner of this world. You are the not world creators. So you are just a part and parcel of this whole ecosystem, this whole kind of a world system. So in that sense, who you are is defined by something else. When you say you are mother, it is defined by your children. When you say the children, you are defined by your parents. When you say that you are people, you are defined by your duty of a classroom. You're the teachers. So everything is that defined by its, something else. That's why we are talking about anatta, the no self, you see. Because there is no self as a there's such thing, this and that. Because this is something happened because there's something else. We call black because there's a white. We call red because of whatever it is. We call man because there's a woman. We call day because there's a night. So it is defined by something else. So that is the whole idea of a bhaga, you see, bhagavato. So in order to realize that, if you realize that we are not the owner of this world, if you realize that we have to live with others, we have to rely on dependent on others. We are not independent, we are dependent. So once you know that we are dependent, basically means that you have to make friends with all dependencies. Only then your life will be safe. So therefore, in order to able to realize that you are dependent and then to honor those dependencies and live more mutually, more kind of a happily, kind of a more friendly, then you can live happily. So that is the word bhaga basically means. Bhagavato means that you are able to recognize, you have to cognize that you are not the owner of the world, you are not a master of this world, but you are the small part and parcel which defined by something else who you are. So once you know yourself, once you can identify yourself as who you are, suddenly you need to have arahato. Means that what you need have to be, have to be the size of who you are. Arahanta, that's why you have to kill your enemy or the kilesa. Hanta, ari, the satru. The hanta means that to kill. So you have to kill what you call is what make your bloat out, what makes you that you are small, but you need a lot of desire, you need a lot of hatred, and so and so. So in order to realize yourself as who you are, a small being, a part and parcel, dependencies, similar way, if you understand that, you should have to have this power to really limit what you need or what you do, your whatever we call kilesa. And that is arahato. So how do you self, what is a self? How you put yourself in the society, you see. That is a bhagavato and arahato. And how do you know that? Through samma sambuddho. Samma sambuddho, we always say that the samma is always right, we say, and the sam is yourself, and Buddha means that no. You have to learn by yourself. You have to kind of self observance. It's kind of cognizance. You have to be learned by yourself, not by somebody else. You have to be really self-experience. And again, for the Pali scholars, I would like to say that look at the word samma. But we always translate as a right, proper, good, or whatever it is. But if we translate as a right, proper, good, it means that it's become a subjective. It means that only Buddhists are the right, only Buddhists are the good. Then all others are bad. Then all other are micha. Then, so we always say that samma ditti, samma and all this. But actually, I think the word samma sambuddho, we have to make a you have to really learn hard there, and then to finalize what does samma means. Again, the samma from the Pali scholars, Pali point of view, it is a word sama, and a samatha, samadhi, samma is the same root. What does it mean? To calm down, to calm, to make it to rest, sama, or to eliminate. Eliminate what? To not let all the kilesa arise above you. That is a samma. So in terms of Eightfold Noble Path, samma ditti, samma sankappa, whatever it is, then we started the view which kill your what? All the desires, all the aversion, the kilesa, which you put in a calm. So that the dristi, the view which keep you calm, that is a samadhi. The thought which keep you calm without all the residues, all these kilesas, that is a samma sankappa. The samma vacha, samma kamanta, all those things actually in the Eightfold Noble Path, it is not about the right or wrong. It is about the any actions, any things, any sila, samadhi, pragya in the abbreviation form, which doesn't let all the kilesa, all the lobha, dvesa, and moha, the greed, hatred, and the ignorance, do not let those things arise above you. And that is to let them calm. That is the word samma. So samma sambuddha means that, so you have to realize, you have to be cognized in a way that those kilesa wouldn't, just pop up and then disturb you. And in a way that is how we look at the Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa in a practical way, not just a way of venerating the Buddha. Because by veneration, you get nothing. You get a faith, of course. You will get maybe some satisfactions, a mental satisfaction. But something is not as a Buddhist. In order to Buddhist, you have to be able to use it in our real life. And that is real life is that you have to understand society, that is a sila, and then you have to understand what we call is self, that is samadhi, and then spirituality, that is panya. That's why I say that this is to know the three S, that is what we call Sikha in Buddhism. Again, Sikha, I would say that it is a value learning. And that is very, 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 very clear in terms of the sayang ikha, means that self-seeing understanding, you see. So the whole education here is that from the Pali, it is very clear. From the Western point of view, it's very gloomy. So it is just about I don't know, what does it mean? All about the facts and figure. But from our point of view, from education, sayang ikha, self-seeing understanding. Saha ikha, in other words, is communal understanding, you see. It is not only yourself. You are talking about all people you live with. That is another word for the saha ikha. And another word is sayang samma ikha, you see. Right seeing or right understanding. Again, I have told you that a right is not the right word to say here. Samma means that which is a calming, which let all the kilesa calm. So any seeing or any understanding which doesn't bubble up all the kilesas. So that is the whole idea of, you see, Sikha basically means. And that is the whole idea of education. I don't have to go through what is Buddhist education. The word Sikha, the education from the Pali itself is more than clear. Is so clear, kind of crystal clear, that education of Sikha in Buddhism means what really means and why it is really important to become a true human being. Same as actually, if we look from the Western point of view, just to give you a little bit of different opinion there. Again, education, if you know that from the Latin, it's educare, educo. Again, which is totally different from what we understand. It's actually, when we talk about education in modern days, we are talking about putting storing ideas all and in. But the whole idea about education in even in the Italy in the original etymology means that you have to bring your humanity out. You see, it's bringing out, not putting in. But generally people understand education means that process of putting in. You are taught, remember that, memorize this and this and that. But no, education basically that is a process. But education means that something which you can take inside yourself and then able to go through a lot of process and then bringing out something new, kind of creativity, innovations in what is a modern 21st century all this vocabulary. And these are the things what we talk about the education in actually in English. Again, generally when we talk about the Buddhist ideas, we are always talking about Manusa Deva. We are talking about the Sattha Deva Manusanang. And basically, Sattha is a great teacher, you see. And who teach what? Who teach not only the human being and teach even the celestial being, the Deva. Means that teach both good and bad people, you see. Deva not necessarily means that someone who is in the Swarga or in the heaven, because we'll have a big problem with the word Swarga and Naraka, because again in the Pali Tipitaka it is not clear as we understand. We are understand as a Swarga and a Naraka and Swarga based on our Hindu sort of ideology, Brahmin ideology. But from Buddhist ideology, Buddha clearly says that what we call is Swarga, the Suagga, and what is called Naraga Niraya is out here in our sensual pleasure, in our eyes, in our nose, our mouth. You see, it is not somewhere under the ground or above the sky, as generally people understand. And Buddha just simply explained in the Tipitaka very clearly is that when you see things through your eyes, able to recognize that what they are, and then once you have feelings that is unpleasant, that is a naraka, that is a hell. And something that you enjoy, that is a happiness, or that is a Swarga, that is a heaven. So heaven and hell is not out there somewhere, but heaven and hell is with your eyes, with your nose, with your mouth, with your body, and so and so. So this is something that how do you refine those reactions? You see, this is education again. How do you refine that? How do you kind of make it so fine? Generally, we are very prone to the action and reactions. When somebody said something, let somebody says that stupid, somebody scold us as a stupid, we immediately become stupid, because we'll say that, how dare you say that I'm stupid? You already accept that. How do you know that I'm stupid? Again, you will become stupid. Let's say that if you scold somebody as a garha, the ass, and immediately you become one. You see, you forget to look at it, just action and reactions. So the whole idea of Buddhist education is that before you react immediately, put some filter. You see, put some knowledge, and then once you have that, put some knowledge, that the reaction totally different. Reaction will be more kind of intellectuals. It's more kind of peaceful. So if somebody says that you are ass, you are gara, then you will look at yourself. Do I have a tail? No. Do I walk in the four legs? No. Then where is the ass? It means that, you are talking about somebody else. And then you can just ask back that, where is the ass? I don't see anyone here. So who become ass then? So that is a kind of a different, very wise intellectual way of reactions, not actions and reactions. So to refine that reaction is what we call Buddhist education, you see. And that makes the whole life is a more, more kind of meaningful. Just to give you a very good example, in Thailand, there's a culture is that, how long I got it. How many, how long I have a time. Actually, I think it's already an hour.
Yeah, Bhante, you can continue, no problem.
Okay, I can continue. Okay, in Thailand, we have cultures is that every male, they have to ordain once in their lifetime. And then once they are ordained, they call that you are ripened. you are cooked. But if you are not ordained, you say that you are still raw. So basically, in Thailand, every male they go to ordination, they become a monks in their lifetime because that is their certificate, a legal certificate to marriage, actually. You see, because when you go and ask for someone's daughter's hand to get uh, married, they will ask that, have you ordained? Because ordination means that once you ordain as a Buddhist monk, what you have learned through Buddhist education is that you will honor the right of someone else, especially the girl or the lady who is going to be your wife. So you will know how to honor that. So that's why they always say that ordination is the way of to make you ready, cooked man, just for to get married. And they said you are educated one. So when you disrobe, actually, when you disrobe, they call it's a pandita, but it is in Thailand. The pandita is become a certain form, become a tit. The only the two word. And when you are monk, you study, and when you leave the monkhood, you become someone who is learned. So that is, how the Buddhist life in Thailand is always look at it. Again, if we look at the Thai education here, when they modernize Thai education, so it is very important. The one of the modernizer of the Buddhist education, who happened to be the abbot of the temple where I'm staying at the moment here, he was the prince also. And he defined education as, to a value learning of humanity. Education is that to teach a temple boy and a normal boy to become a true human, you see, to become true human. So that is a very, very Buddhist way of putting the whole education. That makes us rethink that after all education we give in our university, do we make all of them a human or not? That is a big question. Are we creating human or monsters through the educations? My life has been involved in the prison. I don't know why, but I have been in and out of prison for over 10 years. And this morning I was in the prison as well. And then this morning I met one guy who got 2 PhD, 8 master, all different kind of degrees. And he was a lecturers, professors, but now ending up in himself in the jail. So what does it mean by educations? No, I have only 1 PhD, but he got a 2 PhD. He got a 6. I got only 1. I have only 2 MA, but he got 6 MAs. And he was a professor teaching all around all the universities in Thailand. But now I'm seeing him in the jail. So what does it mean by having all these secular educations? You even can't take care of yourself with those educations. So basically, when we talk about Buddhist education, how do we build or how do we create a true human? And that humanity is more important. In Mr. Manushya, how do we create the Manushya through educations? And that is, we have to be very clear cut on that Buddhist education in that sense. But these days, we can see that, if you see my slide, these days, that's what happened to the education system. Generally, by nature, our way of learning is as always, we want to learn more, this and that. Whenever you see, and you will see that when we go to kind of travel or whatever, you will see that a lot of things, and you want to learn more. You want to learn more all the time. But all our education system, when we go to the university, when you go to the school, and the teacher says that, no, you have to learn this much. They will cut it all, trim it all out, and then just give a certain part of knowledge, what they think that you need it. They destroyed all our imagination. They stole all our creativity, all the innovations. What we have it is our right by, our birthright. But the modern education system that trim it out and then do not allow us to be free as we are, who we are. And that is something that we have to think about modern educations. and versus our Buddhist education. Buddhist education is allowed us to think freely, but at the same time, give a guidance, give a sort of a way to make it more effective, more gratefulness, and to become a more human. Then if you can do, it will make it more even the deva, not only the human. So these are the what we call, what I see that the modern education is a big problem. Just to give you another example of the education we are using in this modern world. I was graduated from Cambridge. Fortunately, I have to say fortunately, I was graduated from Cambridge. And then now I myself involved in a lot of university in Thailand, in other places, in Nepal, and so and so. But I don't know, how I'm going to bring these two things together. When I was doing my degree in Cambridge, what I learned is totally different from what I learned here or what I teach to my students these days. When I try to teach the student the way I learned in Cambridge, they won't understand me at all. When I was in Cambridge, what happened is that a professor gave me an assignment. And then, so in order to finish assignment, what happened is that I burned midnight light. So every time when I go and deliver my assignment, my eyes will be panda eyes. I didn't sleep. So the professor said that, why? Look at you. You didn't sleep last night, did you? I said, no, sir. No, sir. So he said that you are all way from your Thailand to here and to do this kind of job? No. Education, knowledge is not in the book. Why you are studying the book? You are in the Cambridge. You know that Newton, which is in the King's College, the picture here is that the King's College. The Isaac Newton is here. And the Isaac Newton, what is called is gravity, is from the classroom or outside. And I was studying I was in the Christ College, where is my alumni is actually Charles Darwin. And then where is your alumni, your Charles Darwin? Did he get that knowledge of evolution in the classroom or outside the classroom? And then why you stick yourself in the book? So, but it's totally different from what we have taught. Through our life education is that look at book, read book, and so and so. But in Cambridge, the professor asked me to throw the book. The knowledge is out there. And then when he gave the supervision, instead of in the classroom, because I didn't sleep, my eyes are panda, and then he says that, okay, let's walk. So he will take me to this green land, this green in the Cambridge, which generally a professor can walk through, but a student can't walk through. But he said that you can walk with me. And he will take me and take a kind of sort of a step throughout the canal and so and so. And throughout that walking, he will explain all those things. And within an hour, all the idea is so crystal clear, which I couldn't figure out in the classroom. You see? So this is the way you can have to explore the ideas. But the way that we teach our students, no, we do not let them explore any ideas. We are trying to, push here and push there, and then trying to really make their brain, shrink your brain, not expand your brain. And this is something we have to think in terms of giving education to our world. We are talking about in this 21st century, we are talking about the education for. I don't know what does it really mean, actually. And we say this is education for. And then they say that this is a development of modern education, the 21st century educations. And that is the first education one is that lectures and memorization. I think we have passed through that. We know that. Even when my novicehood, I was asked to memorize a lot of things. And that is good, actually, in a way, if you know how to use it. And because my lifestyle at the moment, without that memorization of the Parita, I think I'm not a good monk, because people always ask me to chant the Parita. If I can memorize, then if I have to use a book like all these Christian priests, I think the sacredness is gone with that. But it is not only about memorizations. What we know even about education is that we have to understand what we chant. For example, I always say that just like in Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddha, we say we pray and we kind of say that I take refuge in Buddha, Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. And I always question that, why you want to take Buddha as a refuge? Buddha is already gone. He already left us 2,600 years ago. And then why you want to take refuge to him? Buddha is not a human. Buddha means that the quality, the knowledge, about the buddhi. Why you have become a Buddha then, instead of become using your buddhi? You see, the whole idea is that I take buddhi, I take a wisdom as my guidelines to lead my life. That is a Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. What is Dhamma? Dhamma means principle. Dhamma means that upholding, which sometimes, which the nature which uphold itself. And this means that I take those principles as a guideline, not the dharma as a tripitaka, not the dharma as anything else. The dharma means that the absolute truth as our guidelines in our life. Sanghang sarana gacchami doesn't mean that you have to take me as your refuge, but because I don't know, I myself, I'm not sure what I'm doing. I don't know what I have to take my refuge on somebody else. So it doesn't mean that you have to take refuge to Sangha as a me, but Sangha here is, we know that a Sangha means that a community. So whatever community you are there, you have to live based on the community base, because otherwise, if you are among all these bad people, you are the only one good people, you can't survive there. You have to be bad as well, I guess. So same as if you are the good people, you are surrounded by good people, you are the only the bad people, you can't survive there. And that is a very community base. So whatever we do, we have to base on the community, we have to base on the nature, we have to base on the culture, and basically that is a Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Why we always put it in a more kind of sacred, more kind of in a way that it is something about belief, you see? And that is the education one in general terms. But if we know that these days we have internet enabling, that is becoming open sources, now the authority of education or Buddhism is not only the monks or the Buddhist temple, everyone is. So the education tree, they say that is a knowledge producing educations. But again, this is not enough in the modern days. So modern days, what we need is that innovation producing education. So basically, that is edukare after all. And that is education, means that is a sikha in Buddhism. Sayang ikha, samma ikha, asaha ikha, you see? That is what the world talking about in the 21st century. That is the education for, which I don't know why the world is they just awake. They just see this now in the 21st century. Whereas in Buddhism, we have been talking about the word sikha itself is very clear, as I mentioned earlier. So these days, when you talk about this 21st century, again, they are talking about what? The 3-4 things. The lifelong learning, that is, again, Buddha has been telling us about 600 years ago. Creativity, dealing with uncertainty, the anicca, innovation, abstractions, the soft skill, artificial intelligence. You see, whatever it is, actually 21st century, when you talk about that, look at the Buddhism. Go and just look at your Buddhism and then see that all this is something very nature, very archaic. This has been taught by the Buddha since 2,600 years ago. Not a new thing at all for us. And this is very, very promising, and this is something that we can look at it. And similarly, if I put the Buddhist education or Buddhist propagation in that kind of line along the what you call is education 4, then you can see this is what happened. The first education, Buddhist education 1 will be the Mukhapatha. Memorization, oral tradition, ritualizations, and people like it very much, rituals. And the second is textualized. Then we started to record all the things in the text and so and so. And again, still memorization, but at more is we have a text to rely on. And then we have a printing sort of a development innovations there. And the third, what is digitalized, then we are these days, we are very familiar with digitalizations. And even we make it now Buddhist study. Not a way of life, another kind of understanding, now make it the subject of the study. And then we debate until, sometimes we kind of fight each other on this particular point of debate, philosophize all those Buddhist teaching and digitalize. But when we talk about the 21st century, basically means that we have that ability to combine all those things. We should be able to understand Buddhism based on in our daily life, based on the reality of these globalizations. And then it is not Buddhism for Buddhists, but it have to be a Buddhism for all. It's a universal accessibility. When I was teaching in America, I was surprised and I asked that why my class is so popular in your university, because I teach at the Santa Clara University, which is a Jesuit university. And it happened to be that whatever term, whatever quarter I go and give a lecture there for a kind of a whole quarter, my class will immediately, they said that by 15 minutes, my class will be overbooked by 15 minutes. And my kind of this Jesuit priest always asks me, why, what you got it? Do you have what magic word or what magic things you got it? Because my class, I have extended the time to open and open. I still don't get one student, but your is overcrowded already within 15 minutes. And then I asked that why you guys you want to learn Buddhism? And that's very sensible. He said that my Jesuit colleague says that, don't you know that Buddhism, we never take Buddhism as a religion here. Then what then? They said that Buddhism for us is a kind of a science. It's a kind of a knowledge. It's a kind of education. Every single being needs to study. Unlike Christianity, unlike Islam, unlike other religion, it has a religious feeling, but Buddhism has a universal meaning. Because when you study Buddhism, when you learn Buddhism, if a Christian learned Buddhism, Buddhism wouldn't convert him to be a Buddhist, but make him a good Christian. If a Muslim study Buddhism, we never convert him to be a Buddhist, but we make him a good Muslim. And that is why your class is so popular. You see, that is a universal accessibility. You can see that. In America these days, you have what you call is a new Buddhist group. Some of Buddhist group called Jubu. I don't know how many of you know about that. Jubu, Jubu. Basically, it is a Jewish Buddhist. By religious affiliation, they are still Jewish. They do all the Jewish rituals. But in terms of their kind of explorations, their practice, they follow the Buddhists. You see, these are the kind of a universal accessibility. The another one is that in this modern 21st century, I always put Buddhism as a sustainability. This is very important because these days we are talking about sustainable development, SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. And then if we understand the Pali word exactly, you will know that it is the first, Buddha is the first person in this world who talk about sustainability, who talk about sustainable development goal. Not the UN, who just came and then said that we set a target by the 2030, we have to meet the sustainable development goal. Actually, Buddha was the first person on earth, who talk about sustainability. I will come to that point later on. So therefore, I guess that I wouldn't go through the other point. Similarly, I will just jump to the whole idea of a sustainable here. You see, actually sustainable is a very problematic word. We call sustainable development goal. Because in generally, when we talk about sustainable, means that it is never changing, it's go forever. So, but development doesn't mean that it's always changing. If you don't change, do we call it development? So what do you mean by that? Development's always dynamic, always change. Sustain means that you don't change, which can go forever. Nichang. The nichang means that which is go forever is called sustain, but whereas the development, it means that dynamic, it's always changing. So I don't know what does it mean. So in many countries, we always translate in kind of a very sort of a paradox. It is an oxymoron in the sense, sustain. But when we look at the origin, the etymology of sustainable, it makes sense. Because look at here, the SUS, sus means from below, and the root is tener, to hold, to uphold. The word tener, actually, it is the same root of the word dr in our Pali. The dr, actually the word dr, which means that uphold, which is a dharma, you see. So therefore, sustainable development is that a kind of development which keep upholding. Development in balance, or development without negative byproductions, not a development forever. I think the Indian word for the sustainable development is much, much better. I think it is called Samdharana Vikas, something like that. I'm not sure. If we say the Diga Vikas or the kind of a long forever Vikas, I think that is wrong. But if you use that Samdharana Vikas, means that dharana means that upholding. That is the right word. But in many countries, it means that a kind of development which can go forever. So if there is a kind of forever, is everything is nichang, then Buddha is wrong. Then we are talking about anichang. There is no such thing as a nichang. So this is a big paradox. We have to think about that. So therefore, if we look at the word sustainable development with the word Pali word, what is if you had to use the Pali word, what is that? So I have come to the word as Dhamma means that uphold, Chakka means that move forward with the ground, that etymologically, and Pavatana is a patipatti, it does mean to put in practice. So therefore, Dhamma Chakka Pavatana means practice of moving forward, development with soul grounding in balance. So that is the sustainable development, you see. It is not something about the world talking about. We are talking about the Dhamma Chakka Pavatana. So the discourse of a Dhamma Chakka Pavatana Sutta is basically means sustainable development in practice, you see. So that is that kind of education we need. It is not about the, develop forever. There is no such thing as a develop forever. There is something that means Dhamma Chakka Pavatana. Even the United Nations, they just put as a Dhamma Chakka. It's an ideology. But if you look at the Buddha, says that no. Buddha says that you have to be Pavatana. You have to practice those things. You have to put in action. So even the UN, I think they got wrong. They just give an ideology. But Buddha has been given this idea from 2,600 years ago as a Dhamma Chakka Pavatana, which is again is the essence of what we call is a Tisika, that is a Sila Samadhi Pragya, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, and that is the essence of Dhamma Chakka Pavatana. And basically, that is about education. And education about what? Education about how can we develop our world in a more balanced way, is a more sustainable, means a balanced way, a dharma way, a dharmic vikas. It is not about the kind of all this nonsense vikas. It is about the dharmic vikas. So therefore, just to give you a simple idea on that, I have a small clip, I made it about that. The Buddhist path to sustainable development goal. So again, the Buddhist path for sure is that the Tisika, because Eightfold Noble Path in its kind of education. So I have created this video clip, kind of a small documentary. How can we use this, apply this Eightfold Noble Path to achieve the sustainable development goal? I guess that you can hear and you can see this clip.
The International Conference on the Buddhist Path to Sustainable Development Goals is an effort to give an alternative look at the way to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Organized by the National Office of Buddhism and the World Buddhist University of the WFB as a tribute to the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, who was born on December 5, 1927, and the late Supreme Patriarch, Somdet Prayang Nasangwon, the founding inspiration of the National Office of Buddhism and the World Buddhist University. How can we adapt to a world that's always on the move? The world never stops developing. The question lies, what kind of development we care for? Is development really a development? There are growing fears that current levels of economic development are not sustainable. As the composition of the world population changes, policymakers have turned their attention away from economic development to sustainable economic development. These days, our development is geared by the GDP. On a sad note, with GDP development also brings in decadence. We see many who are economically sound are not always happy. Economic development does not guarantee happiness. Therefore, We have been searching for a perfect developing model which keeps a holistic vision of human development, a balance between material and mental development. The development which guarantees GDP as well as GNH, which seems as an impossible mission. In September 2015, the United Nations achieved international agreement for its 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. The agenda identifies 17 goals and 169 targets to address a number of economic, environmental, and social concerns facing the world today. The 17 global goals that cover 5 key themes: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Of course, agendas are mere words on paper unless they can be implemented. To do that, capacities need to be built, governance need to be improved, citizens need to be engaged, and while money isn't everything, financing is required too. Most importantly, what is the role of spirituality and religions towards the Sustainable Development Goals? Many see the sphere of religions and development are two different entities. On the contrary, the wise may use spiritual and religious roles to expedite the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, the global goals would be easier to achieve with the full engagement with religions. Religions do complement the Sustainable Development Goals not only to achieve material success, but overall happiness too. While the world is in the spree of the SDGs, the late King Bhumibol Adulyadej, owner of the United Nations First Human Development Lifetime Achievement Award as the world's development king, presented his own blueprint of the Sustainable Development Goals with his innovation principle of the Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, or SEP. In this regard, Madam Irina Bokova, former Director General of UNESCO, once addressed,
"The late King put into practice a vision that gives us the keys to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And in this spirit, I wish to thank the Permanent Delegation of Thailand to UNESCO and the World Fellowship of Buddhists for organizing this very timely event. His Majesty's far-sighted philosophy of sufficiency economy and its contribution to economic and social change today, not only in Thailand, but globally. His Majesty marked the history of the 20th century, but this vision, and I would say wisdom, will mark the 21st century as well. He advocated a holistic vision of human development to empower the most disadvantaged, to achieve greater social equity by challenging classic growth patterns. This philosophy guidance resonates deeply with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development adopted by the United Nations in 2015, which sets an ambitious and bold blueprint to advance human dignity and to protect our planet.
The late King's SEP is no other than a secularized version of the Buddhist threefold training. Sufficiency is a secular form of ethical discipline, the ability to refrain from destructive behavior. The way for us to develop this is to engage in constructive behavior. Economy, from an etymological perspective, means management of household life. The late King's economy in Thai resembles English etymology, that is, excellent management or setakit. Buddhism points at mind management as an excellent management. Philosophy, again, is a layman term for wisdom or discriminating awareness. the ability to discriminate or differentiate between what's to be adopted and what's to be discarded, the sense of full of rationality. Accordingly, sufficiency stands for life of moderation, not too much and not too little, the sila. Economy stands for excellence action, that is, mindfulness practice in every field of our life, samadhi. Philosophy stands for penetration or mental acuteness to our mindset of the world, panya. The secular SCP or the Buddhist threefold training leads to the noble eightfold path in action. Through SCP, it triggers 8 directions of holistic human development: speech, strategy, sustenance, effort, exactness, engrossment, penetration, and perception. Generally speaking, sustainable development easily can understand as an oxymoron. It is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, the modern mantra of sustainable development needs a deeper scrutiny. Etymologically, sustain means holding all activities with firm foundation from below. Fundamentally, sustainable development is any development which has a balance as its foundation and has no negative byproduct on society, economy, and environments, as we have been facing with most developments. In this regard, Buddhism can be seen as the path to achieve the very sustainable development as its ultimate goal. To be precise, etymologically, the Latin root of sustain, that is, tene, and Sanskrit root of dharma, that is, dra, are in fact the same root and have same meaning, that is, to uphold. When Dharma means sustaining, then we can say that the Buddha's Dharma means the Buddha's teaching on sustainability. In other words, Buddhism is all about guidance on sustainable development. Accordingly, the Buddha's first sermon, Dhammmasavana, literally can be translated as the application of sustainable development in action. This directly indicates that Buddhist principles are a direct guideline to achieve sustainable development in action.
So you can see that this is actually the Eightfold Noble Path. And basically, Eightfold Noble Path, as we know, is a TCK. And with the TCK, we can see that actually the whole world we are talking about, the 17 the Sustainable Development Goals, we can achieve through those these Buddhist educations. While the United Nations is still, I think, they are blindfolded. They are still trying to find the ways, where to find us all this knowledge. And that is something that the Buddha has given us a long, long time ago. Similarly, actually, I guess there is a Jack Ma, who is very famous kind of a businessman in this modern world. He says that he talked about Buddhism at the time when he was visiting Thailand. This country's religion is Buddhism. I like this religion. Last century, the world is driven by knowledge and by science and by competition. This we should call knowledge-driven. This century, I believe it should be wisdom-driven, tolerance-driven, inclusive-driven. This is about wisdom. And Buddhism is all about the wisdom, you see. So what he's talking about is the Buddhism, that this modern world need Buddhism to drive on. Buddhism is all about wisdom. This is his word. Buddhism is about change your body to be harmonious with your heart. Buddhism is about change your body to meet your soul and your heart, you see. This is something, I don't know, he's another Buddhist, but what he finds is that the whole idea for Buddhism is very how it is needed for this modern world. So therefore, I would say that in terms of a Buddhism we are talking about in the West at this moment, is Buddhism is presented and taught in the West without mentioning the brand of Buddhism. Then, okay, let me just jump to something else then before I finish my talk, my lectures. So I would say that Buddhism in this 21st century is something we are talking about IT, we are talking about digitalized, and so and so. The 21st century has crossed all evolution of the past and moving forward rapidly with the IT and cyber cultures. These days, we are talking about digital transformations or digital, what do you call it, the breaking down. Accordingly, dissemination of Buddhism has transformed drastically as well. More ways of creativity and innovation are must for Buddhist propagations or Buddhist education all the time. So therefore, as a conclusion, I will come back to the whole idea which I said in the earlier about the Panchaskanda, the five khandas or the five aggregates. Actually, that is whole what makes us human. So that is whole if we can see it as a vipassana. Again, vipassana, not as a sitting quiet, close your eyes. I always like to translate vipassana as an X-ray, because pasana means that seeing, vi means that extraordinary. So if you can see extraordinary things, means that that is an X-ray. So if you're able to see your life through the X-ray machine, then what you will see is that as a human, you have a rupa, you have a vedana, you have a sanya, and you have a sankhara, and you have vijnana. So in order to able to make sense of anything, these five things have to work together. So the body as a eyes are kind of sense, this ayatana is one of the first doors that we receive the messages. And then it will go immediately and match with our sanya, that is our memory. It'll go and match with that. So if it doesn't match with our memory, then we don't know what he's talking about. We don't know what we are seeing. And so once it is matched, immediately the something, what you call is I appeared, the Vedana appeared. Because like, don't like, dislike, beauty, not beauty is appeared, the Vedana appeared. Once the Vedana appeared, and then we sankhara, we collected all those things and we make a new innovations. And then we realize that this is what? This is good, this is bad, this is alike, this is alike. So this is the whole process of the five aggregates, you see. So through the Buddhist educations, we can change those. Through the education, we can refine these five skandhas. And that is how we make ourselves a human, a total human beings, as a humanity, as a manushya, who have a high mind. Therefore, just to put in a summary, if we look at the Buddhist education, I guess that the Buddha gave in the three levels of educations. One is that Satchanurakkhana. What is Satchanurakkhana means? Maintain theoretical truth as one has studied. That is called pariyati. This is the knowledge once gained from listening, studying from others, or based on theories, Suttamaya Panya. This knowledge is not good enough to firmly hold on to it. One can simply say, I have heard like this, or the theory goes like this, and so on. This is what you call is the first level of Buddhist education, which Buddha talked about, Satchanurakkhana. The second level of Buddhist education is that Satchanubodha, means knowledge spring out from the contemplation and analysis-based theories, Chintamaya Panya. And this leads to the investigations, whether the theory really works or not. So that is the second level of Buddhist educations. And the third Buddhist education, which can apply to in our daily life, is that Satchanupatti, the ability to develop new ideas, new actions, and innovate new inventions, Bhavanamaya Panya, to our success. You see, these are what we call is the Buddhist education we can apply in our daily life. Having said that, another final point I want to raise here, I want to leave with you, just to be able to think in that way, is in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, in the first discourse, Buddha talked about different kind of level of understanding. And those understanding is that, if you can remember, there's a 5 level of understanding, 5 level of education, I would say. That is Chakkung Uttapadi, the kind of a knowledge, kind of educations which is able to see for yourself through your senses, Chakkung Uttapadi. And then Jnanang Uttapadi, once you got through the knowledge through your senses, then you have to match with your knowledge, you have to match with your memory, and then it makes sense of something. That is a Jnanang Uttapadi. So far, the whole education system in this world got only these 2 levels of education's level. But in Buddhism, Buddhist education, there's a third level is that Panya Udapadi. So once you match with your jnana, your knowledge, and then you have to have a multi-dimensional knowledge of that same thing. Panya, pa means that the dimensional perspective, nya means that the knowledge. You have to learn, you have to understand through the multi-dimensional knowledge. That is a prajna. So that is a third level of education Buddha talked about in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. And the fourth level is that the Vijja Udapadi. So once you have a multi-dimensional knowledge of anything, understanding of your education, of multi-dimensional education, then you can destroy the avidya. We can destroy the avijja. So you can destroy the ignorance. That is the fourth level of your educations. And so the last level education, then the aloko udapadi. It's kind of the kind of education which really lighten up, which really give you a kind of a very freedom of your thinking. It's become a light. It's become a very shining light. You can show the way to your life. So these are the different kind of a Buddhist education you can see just simply from a Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So therefore, we can go on and on these ideas. But last but not least, I would like to think as a department of Pali, I don't know if you are good at Pali, I am thinking of the one sort of a word in Prakrit, in a Prakrit. In Lumbini, the way the Buddha was born, in the Lumbini Asoka is Stamba, the Asokan pillar. There's a word that Attabhagiyeja, Ubalike Kate Attabhagiyeja. And all these Western people translated as King Asoka charged the people there the tax 1 out of 8, which is very awkward. If the Asoka is a great devout Buddhist, why he is using Buddhist commercialization there? He shouldn't tax at all. We shouldn't free the tax. Why you are taking 1 out of 8? And if you study the tax system again in the Kautilya Sastra, Artha Sastra, and Veda, and so, there is no system of 1 out of 8 tax system. There is a maximum is a 1 out of 6. So this 1 out of 8 is a very awkward translations, but it has been translated like that all the time. So I would like to leave you that all the Pali scholars that in a Prakrit, what does a real Attabhagya means from the Asokan period? For myself,
Yes.
I always think that Attabhagya is the King Asoka asks us to follow the Eightfold Noble Path. And if we can prove that this is the one, this is the what Asokan said, this is the Buddhist education, we already have a very concrete sort of evidence in the Asokan pillar with the word Eightfold Noble Path. Thank you. I think that is a long way. Yeah, is there any questions? I think I will end my lecture here.
Yeah, Bante, thank you so much. You have actually left me speechless, and I don't know what to say. Thank you so much, and I'm very, very grateful. So I'll be learning from you definitely now, and I'll try to change or my way of teaching or way of imparting teachings of Buddha to Buddhism without the B. That I think
Yes,
I should. Yes. And thank you so much. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the words. I'm really speechless how to express myself. Thank you so much. But about the Attabhagya, Bhante, we have a recent research in the Attabhagya when one of the scholars from German, he had said, as you said, Buddha, Emperor Asoka would not be so, type of taking, 1/8 of his taxes on all.
Yeah.
So what new thing he has told about is that he had made the he has made that point that Attabhagya is when the relics of the Buddha were distributed in 8 parts. He had made Lumbini the 8th place where the relics of the Buddha has to be enshrined, because that was not the place where the Buddha's relics were enshrined. So Attabhagiya, the eighth part of the relics, had to be enshrined at Lumbini, and there at the bottom of the tree, you know, the Sala tree, which was there existing at that time, they had tried to put that relics and that box, and that box was later on transferred to where we see at the Pipravaha, you know, we have found that book, the big casket,
yes.
so that was basically where at the Lumbini, and when Lumbini was not protected, it was not a it was in a vana jungle, so it was not under any king or something, so it was immediately attacked, you know. So to protect that, they had taken out the relics as well as the box and put it in the Piprava. That's the reason at Piprava we have two two relic caskets, you know, one at the below, one of another. That's what scholar has been explaining. So he has tried to find out, he has given this explanation to the word Attabhagiya, that he says he had made it very important place, because when we talk about the pilgrimage, you know, that's a place of pilgrimage as like the eight where the relics of the Buddha are also, and then important places where, like where the Siddhartha Gautami is born and where he attained the enlightenment and all. So that way they had tried to make it that way. So yes,
but I'm not convinced with that. I'm not convinced that much.
Yes. But I just wanted to tell you that this is what is the new trend. Yes. About
I better like my interpretations. You know, so it's a Bala means that to worship actually, but as a text. The Bala means that Bala 5 and all this in Buddhism is meant to worship, to follow. To follow what? To follow the Attabhagiya, means that one out of eight, is Attabhagiya. It's an eightfold noble path. It is kind of one whole thing. So he is encouraging all pilgrims who visit there to follow the Buddha's path of eightfold noble path, and basically that is a Buddhist educations.
Yes, Bhante. Yes, we can also. Yeah. I will also put this into lecture of this. I'll definitely put this kind of new thought process into that. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. I don't know, we have taken a lot of your time, but I will definitely be writing to you, and you'll have to give me some time, more time to learn from you, Bhante. So that is definite now. Okay. So yes, Bhante. So should we ask for? It's a writer ritual, but should we ask for blessings from you, Bhante? Then we need to walk on the right path. Yes.
Sadhu sadhu. Avivadana silisa nityang buddha pachayino chattaro dhamma vadanti ayuvanno sukhang balang.
Sadhu sadhu sadhu.